Most people believe relationships fall apart because of dramatic arguments, emotional explosions, or sudden betrayals. But the truth is far more unsettling. Welcome to Emotional Shadows. Most relationships crumble because of the words. Partners say they crumble because of the words. They never say. They erode through tiny, silent signals that slip through tone, timing, body language, avoidance, and emotional withdrawal. These signals are so subtle that partners don't even realize they're sending them. Yet these invisible cues are the real architects of closeness and the real destroyers of connection. They work quietly, in the shadows, shaping the fate of relationships long before either partner recognizes something is wrong. This is the mysterious hidden truth people rarely want to face. Relationships die long before they collapse, and the earliest signs are always silent. To understand these signals, it helps to look at the origins of modern relationship psychology. Early thinkers like Wilhelm Wundt and Sigmund Freud weren't studying romance directly. We're studying unconscious behavior. They believed that the most powerful human actions are the ones we don't recognize, the ones that operate beneath awareness. Freud describes suppressed desires and hidden fears that shape how we respond emotionally. Carl Jung expanded this idea, explaining that everyone carries a shadow self, a part of their personality they hide even from themselves. Later, researchers like Gregory Bateson introduced a groundbreaking concept. You cannot not communicate. Even silence is communication. Even stillness sends a message. John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth added another piece of the puzzle with attachment theory, showing that the emotional templates we form in childhood silently control how we bond, how we fear, how we cling, and how we detach. John Gottman then discovered that couples revealed their future through micro-expressions lasting less than a second. The twist is that partners rarely recognize the meaning of these behaviors. They only feel the results. All this research leads us to one conclusion. Relationships are shaped more by silent signals than spoken words. The earliest silent signals in a relationship don't come from adulthood. They come from childhood. Every person enters a relationship with a blueprint shaped by early experiences with caregivers. If a child had to earn affection, they may grow into a partner who tries too hard, apologizes excessively, or hides needs to avoid upsetting others. If a child grew up with unpredictability, they may become hypersensitive to emotional shifts, constantly reading micro-expressions like survival clues. If love was distant, they may develop automatic emotional shutdown as self-protection. These early patterns become silent habits in adulthood. At the beginning of a relationship, these habits look harmless. A delayed response feels insignificant. A stiff reaction to affection seems like a pause before saying I love you is brushed off as caution. But these subtle signals are the first clues of deeper emotional patterns that will grow stronger with time. As the relationship progresses, the silent signals evolve. The first stage is what can be called micro-shifts. These are tiny behavioral changes that seem too small to matter. A partner becomes slightly less expressive. Their enthusiasm fades just a little. Their tone loses warmth. They don't look up from their phone as quickly. They forget small details they once remembered. Their laughter becomes shorter. Their hugs less tight. None of these are large enough to be addressed outright, so they go unspoken. But these micro-shifts are the beginning of emotional drift. Partners feel it before they acknowledge it, and silence becomes the first quiet divide. The second stage is the subtle fracture in communication. Partners talk, but not meaningfully. Conversations become practical rather than emotional. Sharing daily experiences becomes less exciting. Curiosity fades. Instead of asking deeper questions, partners stick to safe topics. They sense something has shifted, but neither wants to disturb the peace or appear needy. So the silence deepens. This creates room for misunderstanding, assumption, and emotional guessing. The relationship slowly transitions from connection to coexistence. The third stage is emotional displacement. When people no longer feel safe to express their emotions directly to their partner, they redirect that emotional energy elsewhere. They scroll more. They pour themselves into work. They invest heavily in hobbies. They vent to friends instead of communicating with each other. They create emotional distance without consciously choosing to. This isn't intentional betrayal. It's silent retreat. The message underneath these behaviors is simple. I do not feel fully safe opening up here. Most partners never admit this, but both eventually feel it. The fourth stage is quiet resentment. This is one of the most destructive forces in any relationship, and it never starts with a blow-up. Resentment builds through a series of moments when someone's emotional needs go unmet, when affection is rejected, when a partner is dismissive, when one person carries all the emotional labor, when vulnerability is met with indifference. These moments stack, layer by layer, forming a silent emotional wall. Partners begin protecting themselves instead of connecting with each other. Resentment becomes the filter through which every conversation passes, even if no one says a word. Then come the breaking points, not the loud ones, but the quiet ones. The first breaking point is when a partner stops explaining themselves. They think, what's the point? Nothing changes. When explanation dies, communication soon follows. Another breaking point is when vulnerability becomes unsafe. A partner begins hiding fears, disappointments, dreams, and insecurities, not out of deceit, but out of fear of being misunderstood or dismissed. The third breaking point is the emotional affair, not always with another person, but with distractions, fantasies, dreams of a happier life, or a version of themselves they feel they lost. Emotional affairs don't start with desire. They start with emotional absence. The more disconnected partners feel, the easier it becomes to imagine closeness elsewhere. Once these breaking points occur, emotional intimacy collapses. Partners stop noticing each other's distress quests. They stop responding to subtle bids for attention. Empathy fades. Patience thins, and judgment grows. Conversations become transactional. Physical closeness feels forced. Emotional safety disappears. The relationship becomes a shell quietly held together by routine rather than love. By the time this stage is reached, partners often feel confused about how they arrived there, unaware that silent signals have been guiding the decline all along. Failed attempts to fix the relationship usually follow. Couples try to talk more, spend more time together, schedule date nights, or take vacations. But these attempts fail because they address symptoms rather than the silent emotional roots. Real healing requires confronting the invisible habits, fears, and patterns that shape the relationship long before conflict ever appeared. Modern relationships face additional challenges that intensify silent signals. Technology steals attention, fragments presence, and reduces eye contact. The average person checks their phone constantly, sending a message of emotional unavailability even when they don't intend to. Social media fuels comparison, insecurity, and silent resentment. Manipulative behaviors like inconsistent affection, emotional withholding, or strategic silence become harder to detect but easier to perform. Communication breakdowns repeat in cycles. One partner withdraws, the other pursues. Pursuit triggers more withdrawal, and the cycle repeats until both feel exhausted and unheard. These patterns become emotional loops that replay like old scripts until someone consciously interrupts them. There are 3 essential takeaways for building healthier relationships. First, awareness is more important than reaction. Silent signals often reveal the truth long before conflicts do, and noticing these early shifts can save relationships before they deteriorate. Second, emotional honesty matters more than communication frequency. Asking real questions like, do you feel safe with me? Or is there something you haven't expressed? Opens emotional doors that everyday conversations never touch. Third, emotional safety must be prioritized over being right. When partners feel safe to reveal their real feelings, silent signals lose power and intimacy becomes possible again. As you reflect on this, remember that trust is fragile, not because people are fragile, but because silence is powerful. Love rarely disappears suddenly. It fades in unnoticed moments, into pauses, in the distance, in the unspoken needs, in the feelings partners hide out of fear. The silent things always speak the loudest. If this message gave you insight into your own relationships or helped you recognize patterns you hadn't noticed before, consider subscribing, commenting, or sharing with someone who may need this perspective. Sometimes, awareness is the first step toward healing the invisible spaces between two people.